Hello again, and thank you so much for joining me one more time on my podcast. I know that you have many choices and you could be doing something else with your time now, so I cannot stop thanking you. When I was growing up, a lot of people wanted to be doctors, economists, lawyers. The majority of the people actually wanted to work for government. I know that things have changed now. A lot of young people with all their skills consider much more than before the issue of being self-employed. And of course, the internet is helping. We've seen creatives, influencers, we've seen people who are in the design business. Many young people now think about being self-employed. But there's one sector that might not be attracting as many young people as farming. For the most of the farmers we know that they are usually rural-based, and that for them it's about access to food. There are very few commercial big farmers in Zambia who are actually making money from agriculture. But to every rule, there is an exception. And my guest today is going to discuss with us his experience in agriculture, and we want to find out from him how it has worked out for him so far. So please join me in welcoming my guest for today, James Banda. How are you, Mr. Banda?
I'm well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm fine. We are just pleased that you accepted to come on this podcast today. And let us start from the beginning. Tell me about yourself. Where were you born? How old are you?
I'm 34, born in Kitwe,
Mm-hmm.
born to a housewife, that's my mother, and my father was a miner.
A minor?
Yes.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 4 elder sisters. I'm the last born and only boy.
Oh, you're the last born and only boy.
Yes.
Were you babied? Were you spoiled by your mother?
I would like to say yes, but it doesn't feel like that anymore.
It doesn't feel like that
No,
anymore.
it doesn't.
And how was your childhood? What did you always want to be when you were growing up?
Growing up, I wanted to be an accountant.
Which school did you go to in the Copper Belt?
Primary, I was at Nkana Trust.
That's
Yeah,
in Kitwe.
That's in Kitwe. And secondary, I was at Mkoa.
Mkoa.
Yes.
And then what
So,
did you do after that?
After I finished my grade 12, I worked for an uncle of mine in an internet cafe.
An uncle of yours?
Yes, in an internet cafe.
What
I
happened to becoming an accountant?
Yeah, that was like the gap year whilst waiting to get into uni. And then during that period, my father lost his job in the mines. So unfortunately, I couldn't pursue my training, or is it my career in accounting. I had applied ZICAS, got my acceptance letter, but then I couldn't manage to pay the fees.
The fees.
So working for my uncle in an internet cafe, I think at an early age I learned about the internet before people exploited it, what they're doing right now.
When was this? How far back
This was 2007. Yeah, 2007. So I think my exposure in the world of business started then, because then you'd see students coming to work on their projects, assignments, and then I would get to handle a lot of that.
So after the internet cafe, where did you go to next?
After the internet cafe, my father, he helped me get a job in the mines. And then because of my results, which were quite okay, the mines then took me to learn where I studied to be an analyst in the mine lab. So I was trained to be an analyst. So I was working in the mine labs, practically testing all chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for 3.5 years, and it didn't feel quite okay with me.
Was there no opportunity within the mines for you to move to the accounts department?
Here's what happened. So 3.5 years in the mine lab, I felt there was no growth there. So then I applied for a departmental transfer, and then again the mine took me to school again, where I was trained engineering hoist to be a winding engine driver.
To be a what?
Winding engine driver.
Winding engine driver.
Yes.
What is that about?
It's a job specifically to the mining sector, deep mining, where you're responsible for mine shafts, lowering, taking up of copper, chemicals, and all those things, and people as well. So it's a job that teaches you lots of discipline. because any mistake, you're going to kill lots of people. So you have to be sober-minded, you have to be on time, you have to be disciplined. You're basically holding the lives of thousands of people every shift.
How long did you do that job for?
I did that for another 3.5 years. So I was in the
So almost
mines,
7 years in
almost
the
7
mines.
years, which is my favorite number, 7.
Okay.
When I clocked 7 years in the mines, by then I was sure it's not the place for me. I went in the mines because of circumstances, but I didn't feel like circumstances should keep me there.
So what started coming into your mind?
Yes. At this point, I had, whilst working in the mines, 2010, I applied to do banking and finance at CBU, evening classes. So I did a year and a half. But then I couldn't continue with school and work because my work environment just became too hostile.
What do you mean when you say describe it as hostile?
As
What does
hostile.
that mean?
Not everybody was okay with the fact that I was going to school and working. So I used to have challenges where I'm supposed to be at school, and then you're given a shift at work which doesn't favor you going to school. And it just became toxic for me. And so I had to decide between work and school. I needed the
You
money
stopped
then.
school
I
and
stopped
continued to work.
Yes, I needed the money then, paying bills. Yeah, and a year later, I just decided I'm leaving the mines. It wasn't easy. No one was in support, not even my parents. Everybody said, work 5 more years, you're still young. But I think at that point, my mind was made up that this is not the place for me.
Was it because you felt you were not able to continue with your education, or you were not getting on with people at work, or it's just the job you did not like? What was it?
No, I think my relationship with my workmates was okay. You can't get along with everyone. Yeah. The job wasn't satisfying. And I did have my own aspirations and passions and quite exposed to a lot of things.
Had
So,
accountancy completely gone out of your mind by this time?
I still have the numbers in my head, but I
Okay.
just apply them differently.
Okay.
Yeah. At this point, I had to work with what was available to me. So farming was the next best thing.
How did you stumble upon that?
Okay. My mom's brother is a very big commercial farmer in Mukushi. Yeah. I think I got my inspiration from him.
You were in Kitwe and Mukushi. How does that happen?
I did visit. I did visit him. I saw what he was doing, and for me at that point, education can only get you so far. Beyond that, it has to be your own commitment, your passion, and whatnot. Yeah. So being exposed to my uncle's farm and his business activities, and looking at his level of education, I just told myself, I think this is where I
can
wanna
do
go.
better.
I can do better.
At what point did you go to Mukushi? When do you remember the first time you went to visit him?
That was during my time in secondary school. Even whilst I was in the mines, when I joined the mines 2008, I was there 2008 to 2016. I would still do home gardens. Yeah, I would do tomatoes, sell to the neighborhood, sell to local supermarkets. I would do cabbage, eggplants. I would do poultry. So I did a lot of things. And I would document what I would be doing. Most of what I've done, I've written books about. Yeah. And when I joined the mines, now I had some financial income coming in. So the first loan I got, most of my friends in my department, we were young. When the first thing you do when you get a loan is buy a car. Nobody would think of, okay, I want to start building. I mean, you're in your 20s. So the first loan I got, I actually invested it in a farm and in real estate.
In the Copper Belt?
In the Copper Belt, yes. So my second loan was again in a farm and real estate. So I needed to plan ahead my exit plan for when I leave the mine, what would I fall back on? At that point, I told myself I was never going to get employed again. And it's been that way since then. Yeah.
And it's one thing to say, I have bought a piece of land, I've bought a little house for myself when I leave the mines. Now that mental shift to say, I'm leaving the mines now, I'm going to try agriculture. How was the transition?
It happened so, I can't say it happened so sudden, because it was a thought that was always there, but you kept on postponing it. Yeah, I think I wanted to leave the mine. My plan was work for 3 years, raise the money, and then go to school. That didn't happen. So then the years kept on going. 3 to 4 to 5. I think 7 years was...
So describe for me, what was the first thing you did? You've given your resignation letter. You were not fired from the mines, no. So you gave your resignation letter on one particular day and said, this is it.
Okay. How I left the mine, actually I had written 3 resignation letters. The first 2 were rejected. I wrote my first resignation letter in 2013, and then my boss said no.
And then the second?
We can't let you go. We are going to elevate you. We still need you here. So I stayed.
And then the second letter?
The second one was like after I changed departments. Just after completing my training, I handed in again a resignation letter. Again, it was rejected.
Then
the third one, I was like, I'm going either way.
Okay.
Yeah, whether you take it or not, I think I'm done with this place.
So tell us now, you've left the mines.
Yes.
What was your first day like?
Sleeping. I think the mine, anybody who's worked in the mine in shift work, it causes a lot of stress. Yeah, there are times when I would work for like 2 days straight. My second career in the mine, being a wind engine driver, there were very few of us, and then the mine was expanding. So there are times when you would do 2 or 3 shifts
without resting.
And your body would get used to that, but it wasn't normal.
Okay.
Yeah, my first day of leaving the mines, I stayed home, I slept. I would move from my first day to my first month. When I realized I would no longer queue up for a pay, it was kind of scary.
You felt scared?
Yes, I did. I was like, did I make the right choice? Yeah, and okay, and now you're trying to convince yourself, like, yeah, I think I made the right choice.
While the whole family is saying you've made a wrong decision.
All my sisters, my parents, yes. I don't remember my mother saying so much, but my father did definitely say you should have not left.
Okay, so it's a month now.
It's a month now, and all you have is the money in the bank. There's not much income coming in, so now you have to work with what you have. The first projects I invested in was poultry. I was doing poultry, both the broilers and the village chickens.
At your piece of land that you bought?
No, this was at my parents' place. They had a bigger place, so I built poultry houses there. It went well for about 6 months to a year.
And then what happened?
And then I had a disease, which wiped out the whole flock.
Oh my.
And then that was like...
And you must have started crying.
Definitely. That was like 4 days depression. It's that thing where...
During the depression, what happened? Were you drinking? Were you just...
No, I was sleeping.
You were just sleeping?
Yeah. Depression has never taken me to drink.
Okay. Because most young people will probably start drinking or smoking something.
No, it's that thing where you're in bed but not sleeping. Because it's that thing where when the birds started dying, my nephew would come. I've got a nephew in Quito, and he would come and say, Uncle Jay, 10 more chickens have died. Yeah, and you're there in bed and you're like, okay.
That's my money dying.
That's mourning. You go in the poultry house, like the birds are not eating. There's feed there. They're not eating. They're not drinking the water. you don't know what's going wrong.
Did you feel that it was probably because while you had the passion, you didn't understand how to look after the chickens?
Yes. I had the passion, but my knowledge was not matching. Yeah. That was 2016, 2017. The passion was there, so much of it. And I think that's with most of us. We are so much passionate about stuff, very much willing to do them, but lacking the skill and knowledge. Yeah, so evening, he would come again. Uncle Jay, 20 more chickens have died. And this is a flock of like 900 birds in 3 different stages. So you've got broilers at 1 week, broilers at 3 weeks, and broilers at 5 weeks, and they are all dying.
At the end of it, how many died? Did you salvage anything financially?
I remained with less than 100.
It was a total loss.
Less than 100 survived, but then they couldn't grow because they were stunted because of the disease. The others which died, my garden boy then would get and give around. Most of it was dog food. By then I was also doing dog breeding. Yeah. Most of it was dog food, but then the fridges were full. They could only take in so much. And yeah, I think that was the end of the poultry business then.
What came next?
What came next? For that period, I think I survived on dog breeding. I had quite a number of dogs. At my peak, I had 13 different breeds: German Shepherds, Boaboos, Maltese Poodles. So it helped me survive.
And you were still doing this business within your parents' yard?
Within my parents' yard.
Yeah. And at this point, they must have been saying,
We told you.
Yes. We told you.
Those words did come. More than once, actually. They did come. So even then with dog breeding, I would do a few other things here and there, but it wasn't much. Just trying to keep food on the table. I then, through selling dogs, I met some friends from Congo, the neighboring country, because they would buy dogs for security purposes, like selling to security companies. So one of my dogs, I was really broke. Yeah, and keeping 11 dogs and broke.
And the chickens are not there to
feed. The chickens are not there. So now this is what happened. So my dogs, like these are boagos, they break their cage where they stay, and then they go to the neighbor's place, and then they kill the neighbor's 20 chickens and about 6 rabbits. So now the neighbor comes and says, your dogs killed 100 of my chickens. But his garden boy is saying, no, they were not 100, they were just 20. But then you couldn't argue it out. And then the other neighbor said, your dogs killed 6 of my rabbits. I want them back. So now you're in debt. So now I had to sell one of the dogs to compensate the one for the chickens. Then I started looking around for rabbits to compensate the one whose rabbits were killed. So I ended up buying more than enough rabbits. So when my friend from Congo came to buy the other dogs I had, he found rabbits. And then he said, rabbit in Zambia, this is a very big business in Congo, like rabbit meat. And that was the birth of the rabbit business.
I see. All this still within your parents?
All this still within my parents, yeah. And I started rabbit farming from then. Back to what I'm doing right now, which is what I'm passionate about.
When was the decision to say, okay, now I've stayed at my parents, it's enough? I need to find my own path.
Yeah, actually, at that time, I wasn't staying at my parents' place. I was staying in another neighborhood, but there was no space.
Okay.
So I would go to my parents. My parents' place became my office.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would go to my parents' place, tend to the dogs, the chickens, the rabbits, and then go back home.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it was.
How did you now move the whole business from your parents to the next place?
To the next place. I rented a farm in Kitwendola Road.
What happened to the ones you had bought?
No, that was a plot.
Okay.
Residential plot.
Okay.
Yes, I had built 2 flats then.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're still in Kitwe.
Okay.
So moving from there, I had rented a farm along Kitwe Ndola Road from a family friend. It was just virgin land. So I was there for 2 years. Invested quite a lot. Some of the reserves from leaving the mines. Put up structures, cleared the land, planted tomatoes, okra, green pepper. The business did quite well. At that point, I was just renting, but initially we had agreed that I would buy the place off. So when I was ready to make payment towards buying the place, the owner of the land changed their mind.
James Banda has just explained how he invested his time in different sectors to make a living but couldn't find sound ground up until he got into the agricultural sector, which brought its own challenges. After the break, he tells us more of the challenges he faced and how he went as far as quitting his job 2 weeks before his wedding.
But as you were in this business now, you had expanded tomatoes especially. I've heard lots of problems from people who sell tomatoes that sometimes you just have to throw it away because there's no business. Was it easy for you on the Copper Belt?
Yes and no. Tomato is only profitable if you're doing it in phases, not one field. It's a gamble. Yeah. If you're going to do multiple fields, you're guaranteed 1 or 2 will be total losses, 1 or 2 will be break even, and maybe if you're lucky 3 or 4 will be abnormal profits, which will compensate from the break even and the losses.
Okay, and were you by now educating yourself more about agriculture?
I think I was getting better.
Okay.
With each project, with each year, I was getting better. I was then documenting my challenges, what I was going through, what I was facing. I was learning about market trends, how the seasons behave. I was learning about customers and how they respond. There's a certain way in which you and I can be in the same business, but the sales would differ depending on the time we get to the market. And for commercial buyers, the earlier you get to the market, the more chances you sell, regardless of whether your product is good or not. So it's all about timing. So all this was
from experience,
from
the internet.
The internet doesn't teach you everything. It gives you ideas, but when it comes to farming, it has to be practical.
It has to be practical.
You cannot learn farming off the internet, no.
Okay. So your friend refused to sell you the farm. What was the next decision?
Pull out. Yeah, because I had developed the land, done a banana plantation there, and those are not things you can lift and say I'm going to plant elsewhere. It was tough.
Did they compensate you for that?
No, they did not. They did not. It was not documented, unfortunately. It was a close family friend where you feel we are getting along.
Is that a mistake you've learned I've
made a few similar mistakes. I keep learning. Yeah, I keep learning.
So the lesson was in business, whether family or not, you need to agree on things properly.
Have it documented, have it signed. It helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened? What did you do? You pulled out and moved to...
I pulled out. That was 2017. I had been gathering information, like from 2010. I've been doing all these agriculture activities, doing online courses and whatnot. So 2017, I decided to register the company with a colleague of mine, Prime Care. And then we went, because based on my experience, he thought I could teach from a practical point of view. So now we registered Prime Care. My colleague, he's a vet doctor. And then we went into trainings. Yeah, so that's how Prime Care started out. So then I would teach based from my experience. I would say, don't keep so many chickens. Look out for this.
And he would
Don't-
do the vet side.
He would do the vet side of it.
And this was still on the copper belt.
This was still on the copper belt.
Did you get married along this period? Period?
Yes, I quit work 2 weeks before my wedding.
Ah.
She didn't even know.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't tell her.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, she was going to say no.
Mm.
What I didn't know was whether she was going to call off the wedding or not.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got married 2 weeks after I quit my work. I didn't tell her. When she found out, she wasn't very happy, obviously. Her family were actually telling her, what was he thinking? Like, he's not going to keep you now.
Mm-hmm.
At least if he had a job in the mines, he would have managed. But I had a plan.
Okay.
It wasn't for everyone to see, but I had a plan.
You had a plan. How many children do you have?
I have 2.
Okay.
Boy and girl.
Okay. I know that now you've since left the copper belt. Tell us about that move from the copper belt to Lusaka.
Okay. Rewind. I got exposed to mushroom farming in 2012 on the internet. So I started researching about it, but then that was all it could be, research. I tried to get some information locally. Unfortunately, I couldn't. So I piled up a lot of books on mushroom farming, and then I would read a lot, and then I just stashed it away. So 2017, I'm looking through my files, and then I look at this research on mushroom farming. So by then we had now thought of doing trainings. So I said I might as well include mushroom trainings in this. So I reached out to a friend of mine in Zimbabwe who had been doing mushroom farming for quite some years. So I asked him if he could come to Zambia and do trainings under Prime Care. So he came in a space of 3 months. He came 4 times. We did 2 trainings in Lusaka, 2 on the copper belt in Dora and Kitwe.
And people were really responding to this training.
The response was overwhelming. I worked with...
You charge the people who come
Yes,
for this training?
we do.
So it was making money for you?
It was.
Okay.
At this point, I was living off trainings.
Okay, I see.
The dogs, I had laid off that business because then I had moved. I was up and about. I couldn't manage to look after the dogs. So at this point, I was just living off trainings and consultancy. It's telling people, look, I can help you set up your farm. I can help you do business project. Is it in tomatoes? Is it in poultry? So that's what I was living off. That was 2017. So the response was quite good. We had good turnout, and I thought to myself, I think I will include mushroom to my training skills. So that's how I started now doing my own personal research. Because at this point, I couldn't teach based on theory. None of my trainings are theory based. Yeah. So now I traveled to Zimbabwe with my wife then. We were there for like a week. Went around seeing people engaged in mushroom. They were quite advanced than us. They still are. Then we came back, started experimenting, and then that's how now the love for mushroom just exploded.
Did you buy a piece of land? Or did you begin renting again? How did you start here in Lusaka?
I moved to Lusaka end of 2019, 2020. This was after the COVID era. We stayed in Kitwe at my parents' place. It's quite a big place, so I could play around with it. Yeah, so built 6 mushroom houses there. We went into production. Business was good. At this point, it was all mushroom. I was done with the chickens. I was done with the rabbits.
And where were you selling these mushrooms?
I was selling the mushrooms to hotels and restaurants in the Copper Belt. I can mention a few. Can I?
Well, we just want to know that was
Alright.
there that much business.
I-
Hotels and restaurants is fine.
All right. So I started to supply the mushrooms to Garden Court Hotel, Lunte, Protea Hotel, quite a number,
Okay.
even food lovers.
Okay.
And the business was growing. It grew so big, we did not have the required finances to expand.
How many people were you employing by now?
7.
And did your wife also become
She was
a
part,
mushroom grower?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
She
Yes.
did. So it was me, my wife, and 7 guys.
Okay.
So it was an okay business. I mean, 7 employees, and that's all I was doing. So the business was good, and then COVID hit. COVID hit at a time when we had just received some funding.
Oh.
Yeah, so we got some funding, expanded on the structures, like we did like 8 other structures. And then COVID hit, and then you know what came with COVID? No gatherings, no hotels, restaurants, business, everything. And
let me
that
just
really
ask,
hit
many
us.
young people listening to you now will be thinking, well, maybe you were lucky you had access to money, or maybe your parents allowed you to use their land. For many other young people who might have the same passion with you, access to land is a problem. Accessing financing is a problem. How do they get around that? Was accessing finance easy for you? Was it a loan, or how did you get this financing?
It was a loan.
A loan. You got a loan from the bank.
I got a loan from an investor.
An investor, okay.
Yeah, somebody who saw the potential what the business could be, and then they invested in the business. Getting funding for youths,
for agriculture in particular.
it's not easy. Yeah, I think funding gets easier when you're already established, not when you're a startup.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite hard.
So the mushroom business collapsed due to COVID.
The mushroom business collapsed, and then we had so much mushroom. We had bought like so much seed, built the houses, and planted so much mushroom, and then there were no buyers.
Okay.
So now, at this point, I didn't have the knowledge of agro-processing, which I wish I did then. So we had so much mushroom which went to waste. Yeah. And depression kicked in a little. It does kick in every now and then. Yeah. So depression kicked in a little, and then say, okay, what's next now? So for quite some time, I think things were a bit hard. Because then...
Does your wife work, or she's also a full-time farmer?
She's working now.
She works.
She's working now, yeah. By then she wasn't doing anything.
So you were both,
both
depending on the mushrooms.
On the mushrooms, yes. That was quite
Is that what forced the move to Lusaka in the end?
Yeah, so what forced the move to Lusaka? Lusaka has got the numbers.
Okay.
Yes, compared to the Copperbelt. And then there's also a bigger clientele for mushrooms in Lusaka than
You still
anywhere
felt
else.
mushroom farming was the
thing
for you?
It would be the one thing.
Okay.
It will be the thing I retire with.
Okay.
Yeah. So moved to Lusaka 2019, 2020.
Whose property you bought?
No, unfortunately. So we partnered up with a certain family, and the finances we had from our activities in Quito, we still had a few savings. So we invested into mushroom structures. And the business started quite well. Unfortunately, along the way, they did not grasp the vision I had for the business. I think for most of us investing in a business, we want to see
returns,
profits
dividends
like yesterday.
immediately.
Yes, you invest on a Monday and Tuesday. But then you tell people, say, look, give it 6 months and a year. I think most people are not patient to wait that long. One of the virtues I always say if you want to go into farming is patience. If you're not patient, farming is not for you.
So you fell out with that family?
Fell out with that family, and then met somebody who I became business partners with. By then, my finances were quite low. And I did consider going back to Kitwe, because there was a house. We were getting rentals. There was land. So I did consider going back to Kitwe, and then met somebody who told me, no, I've got a piece of land, and maybe we can do something together. So that was my second partnership in Lusaka. The first one was on paper. It was documented. But then there were some loopholes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think you get, with each contract and partnership, you get better.
Okay.
You know what to look out for.
So are you still in the second one now?
No,
That failed too.
I left 2 weeks ago.
Aha.
I
Okay.
left.
You left.
Yes, I left and left everything behind.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I felt it wasn't my growth spot.
Okay.
Um, it wasn't in line with the vision I had.
Uh-huh.
We were making the monies,
Uh-huh.
but then it's more than just the money. Yeah, so I left and
Are you a difficult business partner?
no, I'm not.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say I'm a difficult business partner. You see, it's very hard to share your vision with people.
Uh-huh.
And that's one thing about entrepreneurship. Sometimes you have to be the only one who sees it.
Okay.
Sometimes even my wife doesn't see it.
Uh-huh.
But then when it doesn't work out, she says, I told you so.
So
When it
what
works
is the
out-
plan now?
What is the plan now? The vision I have is a generation of Zambians who would look at agriculture as a way of creating wealth and not a way of managing poverty.
But how will they believe you when looking at your whole story, we've all been waiting for you to tell us about the millions you've made,
Okay.
but you haven't yet.
That I
Of course,
haven't.
you are young, so you've
Yes.
got age on your side. So do you still believe it's possible for a young person listening to you now and saying, you know what, there are not enough jobs out there. I'm going to be self-employed and agriculture is where I should be going.
Okay. The plan I've always had, I love teaching. I love sharing information. And this is something that has made my 2 previous partnerships fail. They are all looking at it from an aspect of, if James continues teaching and sharing his love for agriculture, he's creating competition. Do you see that? For me, it's not about the competition, it's about...
You find it easy to make a living from training to sort of hedge your seasonal sources of income from agriculture, from the practice itself.
I haven't stopped.
Yes.
I haven't stopped. I'm working on a concept right now. It will be launching next year, May.
I am told that you're thinking of something called agriculture tourism.
Oh.
Tell us about that.
Yes, that was supposed to be a secret. Okay.
The rabbit is out of the bag.
The rabbit is out of the bag. Okay. So I've been working with this concept. It's been in me for like many years now. I've been doing research and interacting with people from other countries, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, SADC, South Africa. I've moved to a new place now. No partnership. And I want to keep it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm at a point where mentally I have gotten to where I needed to be.
At 34 years, you feel you've had enough experience in
Yes.
the business world, in agricultural world, and saying, I'm ready on my own.
I'm ready on my own, yes. I'm not looking for any partnerships right now. I want to launch the first ever agri-tourism farm in Zambia.
Well, what does that mean?
Okay, so...
Usually when we think of tourism, we're thinking of going to Luangwa National Park or
Yes.
to see the Vic Falls.
See the Big Falls. So the whole concept of agri-tourism, which is quite big in developed countries. So we are now bringing the aspect of agriculture and packaging it in a way that it attracts people. But it should attract them in a way that they go back with the mindset to implement. If you look at our agriculture sector, it's heavy on production and very little on processing. All these are concepts that I've included in what would be the agri-tourism base.
So if I came to your place for agri-tourism, what will I see?
Okay, so the place will be located in Chilanga. Okay, so we're currently constructing 16 mushroom houses.
So I would go through.
You would go through
the mushroom, making process or
yes.
growing process.
Yes. Initially, I was just doing oyster and button mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would sell to pizza places and restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
We're also including medicinal mushrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, this is to help with the challenge against diseases, be it cancer treatment and whatnot, because mushrooms are highly medicinal.
What else would I see?
What else would you see? So you're going to see a commercialized rabbit farm.
You have gone back to rabbits now.
I never stopped.
Okay.
Everything was on pause.
Okay.
I think I've gone through phases which prepared me for where I am now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the rabbits are there, doing quite well. Our target is to at least produce 5 tons of rabbit meat a week. Market already secured. Our target is to produce at least 2 tons of mushrooms per week. Market already secured. You're also going to see poultry layers. We're going to have broilers. We're going to have quails. We've also included an aspect of climate smart farming. We intend to put up snail farming, worm farming, maggot farming, fodder farming. We're setting up hydroponic towers and aeroponic towers.
Now, the argument would be that other farms already might do this as individual farms. So when you say tourism, what would be different for me going to visit another farm where they have hydroponics,
Yes.
or where they grow rabbits, or
okay.
where there's a woman doing mushrooms in her backyard?
Okay.
What is the tourism aspect?
The tourism aspect, that all this is now integrated in a self-sustaining farm. Most people will look at farming and say, it's something I have to do maybe at a later time, or it's something I have to do large scale. There are modern ways of farming right now. With a self-sustaining farm and adding the aspect of agritourism to it, it opens up the public to the new technologies of farming.
I admire your passion, because many people have been told that if the surest way to become poor is to go into agriculture. You are young, still in your early 30s. Are you still convinced that young people should take advantage of farming and agribusiness, the agro-processing especially?
Yes. The agro-processing side of it, you had mentioned when you talked of tomatoes going to waste. You can actually do dried tomatoes. You can do tomato powder. So those are things that we intend to be doing at the farm. We may not do acres and hectares of tomatoes, but we will equip somebody who wants to take the tomato farming route on all the processes involved should they go into tomatoes. Just don't grow tomatoes and say, I'm going to take to the market. Grow tomatoes, yes, take to the market. What happens when the market is flooded? What's your plan B? So I want to look for plan Bs and plan Cs, which I should have had then, and then share them with the people.
Would you say farming is actually a lifetime career? It's not something you do. If you're going to be a lawyer, you'll be a lawyer all your life. If you're going to be a doctor, you'll be a doctor all your life. Is that what you would say about agriculture as a business? It has to be a lifetime.
It has to be a lifetime. In my words, I would say it has to be a lifestyle. Yeah. For me, farming is a lifestyle. I wake up and I don't feel like I'm working. My everyday relating to what I do is all fun and play. But it's through the fun and play that I get to pay bills and get to survive. So depending on what you're looking at it, I've got colleagues, friends, clients who are in other fields, doctors, lawyers, teachers, but they still are engaged in agriculture activities of some sort.
Everybody must have a side hustle.
Everybody must have a side hustle. But the good thing about farming is we need to shift our mindset to say you need a 10-acre farm or you need a 50-acre farm. 1 acre can make you go commercial. It depends on picking the right agriculture activity, using the right farming technologies, and then maximizing it. So at the end of it all, if I've got an acre which gives me an output of say $10,000, and you've got 50 acres and it gives you an output of $5,000, I think I'm better. Yeah.
Okay. So the training is still going to be part of the tourism, the agriculture tourism?
Yes, the training will still continue. I think there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be shared. Even where I am myself, I still do consult. I still attend trainings because I feel there's more to learn. There's a colleague of mine in Zimbabwe who at some point he said he grew too much mushrooms and then he decided to go into processing. So now he's making mushroom biltong. Yes. He's making mushroom crisps. He's making mushroom chips. So the demand for the processed food became so much, he shut his production down, and now he's aggregating farmers to just buy off their produce and just focusing on making the mushroom biltong and thing. So
I'll ask you a last question.
Yes.
Is your wife still passionate about what you're doing?
Yes, she is.
She still is?
She still is.
And what is your father saying now?
He's proud.
He's proud of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do talk. I've got a good relationship with him. Yeah.
Okay. And down the line, after leaving the mines, you're feeling very happy about where you are?
No regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
That's what we wanted to hear. Well, I
No
think
regrets.
that this is such an eye-opener. I do know that we're always saying Zambia, there's a lot of potential, and it needs a few young, very brave people to demonstrate to the rest of us that it can be done, and that where there's a will, there's always a way. So we wish you all the best, and we hope that those young people who are listening will also follow your path, at least some of them, so that we can take advantage of this, of the potential that we have. So thank you for accepting to come.
Thank you.
And your story was quite interesting.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that was it for today on this podcast. We were talking to James Banda, a very enterprising and very brave entrepreneur in agriculture who's trying to get into agriculture tourism. We'll be keeping a tab on you to see how that goes and next year. We do know that in our current environment, with the number of challenges, especially in terms of jobs for young people, discipline and commitment to your passion is what might just get you on the other side, as we heard from James. And as I always say, as somebody always says to me, that if you can think and you can speak and you can write, you can do anything. There's nothing impossible. So until next time, thank you very much for having joined me.